Good day, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Teledyne Isco Syringe Pumps. The topic today is 4-pump continuous flow and receive mode programming. So today what we want to do is talk about how to set up, program, and operate pumps in continuous constant pressure mode, continuous constant flow mode, and then the special case of receive mode. Your presenter today is Mark Hansen, and I'm the Senior Product Applications Engineer for the syringe pumps at ISCO, and I've been with the company a total of over 26 years. As you know, Teledyne Isco syringe pumps are the very best choice when you need high accuracy and reliability, and especially if your application is critical. You really can't afford less than the best. And typical applications for our pumps range from catalysis and reactor feeding, core flooding, carbon sequestration, in biomass or biofuel areas, pumping supercritical fluids, injection molding and extrusion, and of course in plastics production and cleaning. So today, to get into today's topics, first we're going to look at how we can identify the two different versions of the pump controllers, and then we'll look at the basic setup for continuous flow. Then we'll go into 3 different examples, one of continuous constant pressure operation with 2 pumps. The second will be continuous constant flow setup with 2 pumps. And then the final will put all 4 pumps to use and operate one set in constant flow to deliver the fluid, and then use the second set of pumps in receive mode to act as a pressure regulator downstream. The controller we'll need to be using is only the current pump controller will actually support 4 pumps. So in order to operate 2 of these continuous flow systems with a single controller, we have to have a current controller. But of course, you always have the option of just using 2 of the legacy controllers, and you can accomplish the same thing. How can you tell the difference between our controllers? Although they physically look very much alike, the new current controller has a backlit display, which you can see shown in the bottom right corner of this screen. And also, we added a dispense mode as a standard feature to the software. So the earlier version of the legacy pump controller we call has a help key. The newer pump controller here, this key has been replaced with the blue dispense key to go into this dispense mode. So it's very simple to tell the 2 versions of the controller apart. If you want to check the version of software that's in the controller, you can always do this by using the menu key and then the More A key, and then pick number 2 from this menu that says Status, and this will bring up a screen similar to the one you see here. In this case, we're seeing that this controller has revision 1.10, which, by the way, is the latest version of the software for the newer controller. Legacy controllers would show either Demo XX, like Demo 79, or Custom 100, Custom 125 for the revision of the software. In this case, too, you can see we have 4 pumps connected as A, B, C, and D. We actually have 2 different sizes of pumps in this example, the A and P pumps being 500 HP pumps and the C and D being the 260 HP. You can find this information how to identify our controllers in one of our technical bulletins, Technical Bulletin 28 on our website. And of course, you can always get to our website by going to www.isco.com and get right to the apps notes. You can just put a /SP app notes at the end of that, and it'll take you right to the page where all the apps notes are listed. Next, let's take a look at the basic setup for continuous flow. These slides were made with a 4-pump setup, as I mentioned earlier, and these 4 pumps, the first 2 are 500 HPs, and the C and D pumps are 260 HPs. The HP series of pumps differ from the standard 500D and 260D in that they are rated at higher pressures. The 500 HPs actually can go to 5,000 PSI, and the 260 HP pumps can go to 9,500 PSI. Both sets of these continuous flow systems, I did have air-operated valves attached to it. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that we have the controller set for the correct type of valves. So we'll press the menu and the A, More key, to get to the second level menu. And on here now, we will pick the valve option, number 6. And this will bring up a screen that shows us our options for the types of valves that we can have. Unless your controller actually has an electric valve card, you won't see the electric ones listed. But we do want to make sure that we have selected the active valves. So we press the 1 key if necessary and make sure that the number 1 is flashing. Then to get out of this menu, we simply push the previous or D soft key 3 times to get us back to the main menu. The multi-pump menus are actually several levels down through the menu structure. So I thought first time I'll go through here in detail and show you what it looks each step of the way to get to these menus. Later on during the webinar, we'll just show the key strokes needed without going through each individual screen along the way. So first, if you're on the main screen and you push the menu key, you'll go to the first level of menus, which you'll see here. Then you press the A or more key to go to the second level of menus. And on this level of menus, you'll see number 4 says multi-pump, and that's what we're looking for. So we'll push the number 4 key here. This will bring up a menu that now lets us choose between which set of pumps we want to talk to. Because when we have 4 pumps, we can actually have 2 sets of pumps running continuous flow. This menu was added. If you only have 2 pumps or even 3 pumps connected, you'll only see the one option of pump AB. But if you do have all 4 pumps connected, you'll see you have ability to use number 1 to go to the pump pair AB or number 2 to go to the select for the pump pair CD. And then when you put in that 1 or 2, you'll switch to a screen that shows you what your options are for this multi-pump for that pair. And you can see for the case of the AB pair, we have a couple that do not exist for the second pair. And these are both modifier type programming, which we're not really going to cover today. But so that's how we get to these screens. So in the future, I will just say, to get to the screen, I would just say go menu, more, A key, then number 4, and then either number 1 or number 2. And we won't show all the different steps along the way. So we can review how to set up the continuous flow systems. We do have a technical bulletin that goes into detail on that. And that is Technical Bulletin 01. It also talks about how to wire up the valves and connect them to the pumps. Next, let's do a setup to look at constant pressure operation. And for this example, we're going to program those 2 500 HP pumps that are connected as pump pair A and B. And remember, these do have air-operated valves to operate as a continuous constant pressure mode. And we're going to pick an operating pressure of 1,000 psi. So now we'll go into the multi-pump menu. So we'll do that menu, A more, number 4 to pick multi-pump, and then number 1 to choose the AB pair. And now we're presented with this screen with the 5 options. We'll push the number 2 key because we want continuous constant pressure. And after we do that, then the number 2 should be flashing. The actual number 2 will flash in front of that to show we've selected that. We'll also get a couple other options on the screen. One is this above the A soft key, you'll see it says normal. And actually this is a soft key to switch between 2 different things. You can use a normal mode, which provides a more exact or slower pressure match, and is what you normally will use, and then the fast mode if you want the pressure matching to occur sooner. So basically, here's kind of like a more detailed explanation of that. Under normal conditions, you use normal, and this will produce the least amount of fluctuations during the switchover. Though your system is not all that pressure stable in your experiment, you may need to use the fast mode, which causes the pump not to spend as long making sure that the pressure is stable before switching over. The next thing you need to do is to select the number 6 off of this main option screen, and then to get to the screen that shows us each pump, how far it will fill when it refills and how long it will deliver before it refills. These are used in the continuous flow mode instead of the independent pump settings on the normal refill screen you may have seen off the normal menu. So in this case, the defaults are that the pumps will fill to 100% or will fill themselves up, and then the switchover will occur at approximately 25% of the volume is left in the pump. If you need to change one of these, you can use the number 1 or number 2 keys to go in and alter these percentages. but normally these will work fine in most situations. The other choice that you see on the screen is number 3. Is kind of cryptically labeled NCV. This actually stands for no check valve, and this is used in our systems where we are working with higher viscosity fluids and you've removed that inlet check valve on the pump, and basically alters how the software works. In these cases today, we'll be working with normal fluids, so we'll just make sure that that does say it's off. If you were to select this menu, you would see you have choices to set when this, what pressure the switchover refill will occur at. The next thing we need to do is go in and set the refill rate for each pump. So we'll go to the menu again, and here number 3 off the main menu is refill. And the only thing that's used here is the number 3 is the refill rate, and we need to set this for both the A and the B pump. Normally these will be defaulted to the maximum of the pump, and we should use the highest that we can get a good pump fill with, because it does affect the maximum flow rate of the system. So once we've made sure that those are both set to the proper value by using the A and B soft keys to check them both, then we'll return using the clear entry key to the main menu, main display, and next we'll look at setting the limits. You push the limits key on the keyboard, and here we can set the maximum or minimum pressure for the system if we wish. In this case, they're just set to the defaults, the 5,000 psi for the 500 HP pumps. And then we'll pick number 5 off this menu, the flow limit. This is the flow rate, the maximum flow rate that the pump will go to when it's attempting to reach pressure. So the default, of course, is that the pump will slowly speed up until it reaches the maximum flow rate of the pump. But in some cases, if your viscosity of your fluid is a little higher or something, you may need to slow that down, or you may not want to flow at that high a rate during this initial pressurization time. So this gives you the ability to use the A and B soft keys to select those and then change those for each of the pumps. And again, they should match whatever you pick. Then we use this clear entry key now to return back to the main menu. So now we're almost ready to go. We use the A soft key then to set the pressure that we want the system to operate at. So we would press this A key and then enter 1,000 and enter the pressure of 1,000 psi. And now the setup's complete. But we need to do one more thing before we push the run key and start, and that is we need to make sure that both pumps are full. So we would use the refill key and then select pump A and pump B and make sure they're both full of fluid before we begin. And now we're ready to start up the system, so we push the run key. And at this point, both pumps will start, and both will be delivering at half the flow rate. Also on the screen, you'll see it says equilibrating. This is the time at which both of the pumps run, and it watches the pressure to see that the pressure is stabilized. Once it sees the pressure has stabilized, it uses this then to record any minor differences that might occur between the two pressure transducers, so it can do a better pressure match during the switchover. And it switches to the run mode, and it will show running on the screen as shown here. At this point, after a few seconds, then whichever pump has the least fluid in it will reverse and refill and come back up to pressure and wait for the next switchover to occur. During this runtime, if you want to check on the status of the pump, you can always do a menu 2 key to get you to a screen that shows you the status, kind of a condensed status of what all 4 pumps are doing. The top line is always the flow rate, the second line being the pressure, the third line being the volume remaining in the pump, and then the fourth line, of course, identifying which pump we're looking at. At this point, if we picked any of those soft keys, A, B, C, or D, we would switch to the individual running time screen for just that pump, or in the case of the continuous flow pumps, that pump pair. So in this case, if we pushed either the A or B key, we would go to the screen you see in the lower part of our screen that shows that the system is running and what flow rate it's running at, what pressure it's at, etc. And also off the screen, although it's not labeled, you can always go back to this other screen by pushing just the D soft key. So you can go between these two screens while the system is running to check the individual statuses or the combined status of what all the pumps are doing. Of course, to stop the system, we push the stop key. This will bring up a menu now, since we have more than one pump connected, and ask us which pump we wish to stop. At this point, we can push the A key, of course, or the B key actually. Will stop both the A and B pumps since they're tied together as continuous flow. Or we can just push the stop key a second time to stop all the pumps that may be connected. So our next example then, we'll look at programming for continuous constant flow operation. And again, we'll use our same two 500 HP pumps connected as A and B with air-operated valves. In this case, we want to operate in constant continuous flow mode at a flow rate of 50 milliliters per minute. So again, we'd use our menu, more, multi-pump, pick pump A and B to get to the main multi-pump menu. And then we press the 1 key, in this case, to select continuous constant flow. At this time, we're presented again with a couple of options at the bottom off our soft key. The first one being the same as for constant pressure, whether we want the more exact or the coarser or faster pressure match during switchovers. We also now have one under the B soft key labeled normal pressure or low pressure. Basically, you use the low pressure if you want to operate the system much below 100 psi. This basically turns off this pressure matching feature in the pump, and so you wouldn't use this unless you happen to be operating at really low pressures with your system, in which case the system does need around 80 psi to do a good pressure match during switchovers. So you'd normally have this set to normal pressure, but like I say, if you happen to be operating at very low pressures, you might need to use this option. And again, then we go to the number 6 off the screen to the other options to make sure that we've set our fill to and deliver to volumes correctly. If you have a low viscosity fluid that refills the pump well, you may well be able to lower this 25% to a lower number, maybe down to 20 or even 15%. And again, I'm just mentioning in passing this NCV or no check valve feature, which unless you're running with like the 500 HV pumps or using very high viscosity fluids and you remove the check valve on the inlet side, this simply lowers the pressure before refilling the pump. And again, we need to check and make sure our refill rates are set correctly. So we go back to the main screen and push menu and then select number 3 for refill off of here again. And again, number 3 is the only one that's we need to use off this screen to set the refill rates for the A and make sure the A and B pumps are both set to the correct refill rates. Also, we can go to the limit screen, and here we can set not only the minimum and maximum and minimum pressures, but also we can set the maximum and minimum flow rates that we want the system to be settable to. And setting this for the A pump will, since we're in continuous flow, actually work for both the A and B pumps. Then we'll return to the main screen by using the clear entry key. So now all we have left to do is to set the flow rate that we wish to operate at. So we'll push that A soft key, set the flow rate to 50 mils a minute. And now we're ready to run. So as before though, we need to be sure we go back and refill our pumps. So we push the refill A and B. In this particular case, it looks like our pumps are already full, since they're both at the full over 500 mils in each one. Then we'll push the run key to begin. Again, the pumps will start running by splitting the flow rate between the two, and we'll go through this equilibration step. During this time, both pumps will continue to run until it sees the pressure stabilize. Once this does occur, then one pump will take over and the display will change to running. And then the other pump will be refilled and the pressurized and wait for the cycle to the switchover point to occur again. Again, like before, we can always use the menu 2 keys to switch to the menu that will show us all the pumps and what's going on with them, or put the A and B or B pump to show us specifically in this case, the continuous flow. Note here too that in this particular case, the B pump is actually running, so we'll see the B here, and the CF, of course, means we're in constant flow. So constant flow with the B pump running, 50 mils a minute. Again, to stop, we just push the stop key twice, or push the stop key and then either A or B, and of course, either one will cause both the pumps to stop. So then the final topic is to use receive mode. In this case, we're going to be using all 4 pumps. So for our third and final example, we're going to take this A and B pump that we just programmed to operate in continuous constant flow mode at 50 mils a minute, and then add the C and D pump to operate as a continuous constant pressure downstream of our experiment in receive mode, so the system will be operating at 1,000 psi. So here's kind of a pictorial of what the setup will be. Again, on the left we have the delivery pumps, the A and B pumps. That will be our delivery pumps. They will be refilled from a reservoir, and then the output of those will go through our experiment. And then the output of the experiment will go actually into the input or inside of the C and D pump pair, and then its output will actually go to waste. So these will be working as a constant pressure regulator to regulate the pressure at this point at 1,000 psi while we have a continuous flowing through our experiment at 50 mils per minute. And again, we'll do this all with a single controller. So since we already have the A and B pumps programmed from our second example before, we'll now just go in and look at how to set up the receive mode. So we'll go to the menu, More, Multi-Pump, only this time we'll pick number 2 to pick pumps C and D that we want to program. And we'll get the screen shown here. And from this, we're going to actually go initially in to press the 4 key and go into independent mode. And then we'll use the previous key to back up. And why we're doing this is that in receive mode, the pumps are actually traveling in the deliver direction or the up direction to empty when we empty them out. So we need to enter this emptying flow rate. And this is done before placing the CD pumps into multi-pump mode, actually while the pumps are still in independent mode. And it's just basically setting the flow rate for the constant flow of the pump. So we will then go in and select pump C if it's not already. Make sure it is in constant flow, CF mode. If not, we just press the constant flow key on the left side of the panel. And then we press the A soft key to enter our flow rate. In this case, these happen to be 260D HP pumps, so their maximum flow rate is 107 mils a minute. So we've just picked the maximum amount to pump when we want to empty them. And then we want to shift to the D pump, so we push the D soft key to select, and again, push the D to select pump D, and then we go to constant flow, make sure it's set to constant flow also, CFD, and set its flow rate to 107 mils a minute also. So now both of the pumps are set C and D to when they empty, which is going to look like normal flow to the rest of the system, to be at this maximum flow rate. Now we need to go back in and actually switch to the continuous constant pressure mode. So we'll go back through the menu, go to the More, Multi-Pump, and again pick the CD pair. Only this time we're going to pick number 2 to select continuous constant pressure. Again, we have, like we had previously, a couple of options that show up. The one being the normal fast, which determines how fast the switchovers will occur. And then now what we want to do, though, is use this soft key C to switch between deliver and receive. And in this case, we want to use the pumps to receive mode. So we're going to make sure this says receive here and push the C soft key. And then we're going to switch to the other options menu again. And we'll note this time that when you're in receive mode, that the fill volume is actually 90% is the default. And again, the delivery volume is 25%. Now we go to the limits screen, and we'll go to look at the maximum pressure limits for the pump. Now we've actually set these, I actually did go in this case and set the maximum pressure to 5,000 psi, because that is the maximum pressure of the delivery pumps we're using, the AB pumps. So even though our CD pumps are capable of 9,500 psi, we really don't want them to go that high, or we create an error on an overpressure condition on the A pump if we did that. So we're going to set it to 5,000 psi for the max. And then we're going to pick number 5 off of this menu to set the flow rate limits for when it's in this constant pressure mode, or what the maximum flow rate it'll go to when trying to reach pressure. And we'll just, in this case, well, we're just going to leave it at the maximums, which is 107 in the case of the 260 HP pumps. And then again, we'll return to the main screen by using the clear entry key. So now we're almost ready. We'll use the A soft key to make sure our pressure is set to 1,000 psi, which is what we wanted our system to run at. The setup is now complete. We need to make sure that the A and B pumps are full, and two, that the C and D pumps are both at half full. In the case of these are 260Ds, so we want to make sure they're around 130 some mils each. Because we do need a little fluid in the pumps during startup to get them up to pressure and equilibrate it. So that's why we want to always make sure that pumps C and D are at half full to start with. So now we're ready to go. So we make sure that the CPC up here, the continued constant pressure for the C pump is displayed. If not, we just use that select screen off the D key to pick that particular pump, C or D, and then we push D for run. We push the run key to start the CD pair up. So again, like the other cases, we'll see equilibrating being displayed and both pumps will split the flow rate until the pressure is stabilized at the 1,000 psi. At that point, the screen will shift to running, and the pump that's the emptiest or fullest, I should say, in this case, will empty itself, and the other one will sit there and wait at pressure. So now we need to start the other pair up. So we'll press the D soft key and select pumps A or B. We could use either one here. And we see here now it's showing us that the cylinder is full and that we're at continuous flow for the A pump pair. So now we push again the run key to start up this set of pumps. And initially it will go through the same equilibration where both will split the flow rate of 25 mils each between the two A and B pumps until those pressure stabilizes, and then we'll switch to running at that point. So now we have all four pumps up and running. The A and B pumps are delivering our 50 mils a minute, and the C and D pumps are maintaining 1,000 psi at the output of our experiment. And again, one more time, we'll just go through that you can use the menu 2 keys to see the status of all four pumps. As you can see in this point, the B pump is actually running at the 50 mils a minute. And the CD pump is actually receiving at this point, so it's a minus 50 mils a minute going into it. At this point, too, the C pump happens to be actually emptying, so it's running at a positive 107 mils a minute to empty. And again, from this screen, we can push A or B to go to just the runtime screen for the AB pair, or C or D will take us to the runtime screen for the C and D. And of course, from either of these screens, you can always push just the D soft key to go back to this screen. So since we actually can't see all these pumps running ourselves physically now, I have taken some screenshots here to show you different states along the process of starting up and running the four pumps. So in the first case here, none of the pumps are running yet, but the CD pumps have been started and are equilibrating. So you can see they're both coming up or almost at pressure, and we're just waiting, but A and B have not been started yet. And then in this case, the D pump is running to empty. It's emptying itself. And again, the C pump now, in this case, is sitting and waiting at pressure. But the A and B pumps, again, are not running at this point. At this slide now, we've started the A and B pumps up, and so they're now running and equilibrating. And you can see they're both at 1,000 psi and 25 mils a minute. The C pump is absorbing the flow rate, and the D pump is just sitting there, in this case, at pressure, waiting to take over. So we'll take a look at the receiving pump switchover now. So in this case, we have the A pump delivering, the B pump is actually refilling, the C pump is the one that is receiving, and the D pump is waiting. So then we're going to do the switchover. The pump gets emptied up right about 65 mils would be 25% of 260. So it's going to start the switchover, and you can see now it's running in the switchover time. Both the C and D pumps are splitting the flow rate and are waiting. And the B pump now by this point, has finished its refilling, and it's just sitting at pressure and waiting. And now the pressure switchover is completed. The pumps now switch to the D pump. Remember here, originally it was flowing, it was absorbing from the C. Now it's receiving from the D pump. And the C pump is actually switched over and started emptying itself out again. And then the last set of slides here shows the switchover of the AB pump system. In this case, the AB has already started its switchover, and you can see it's running at both 25 mils each, Pump C is absorbing the total 50 or receiving the total 50 mils a minute, and pump D in this case actually happens to be emptying itself at this point. This is what happens then at the end of the AB switchover. Now the B pump now is delivering the total 50 mils a minute. Again, the C pump now is actually the one running, and the D pump is emptying itself. And then in this final slide, the A pump now is shifted over to being refilled while the B pump is delivering. C pump's receiving, and the D pump is emptying. So that's how you can use these screens to kind of watch the status of what's going on in the system. Again, to stop the 4-pump system, we can either stop the delivery pumps first by doing stop pump A or B, and then stop the CD pumps or the receiving pumps, or we can just push stop twice and we'll stop all 4 pumps. Another option that's available when you're working continuous flow is there's a total volume that you've seen up in the upper right-hand corner of the screen while the pumps are running. You can reset this volume by going into the menu A More screen and picking the number 5, which is total volume reset. And when you do that, if you have all 4 pumps connected, it will allow you to either reset the total volume for the A-B pumps or the CD pump pair, or if you push number 3, it would actually zero both of these. So you can pick whichever one you want. In this case, we were just going to zero the A-B pair, so we picked 1, and then we push the store key to actually cause the reset to occur. And finally, I thought we'd go through just a few slides here and talk about some possible troubleshooting things that could occur and some solutions to that. First thing we want to look at here is maybe the receive pumps don't properly equilibrate and the system stops running. Cause for this, we may not have started with the pumps half full. We do need enough fluid in there at startup to complete the equilibrium step and get the pump stable at pressure. Another possible thing that you might see is the pressure rising or dropping during a switchover more than you would think. It might be like a case in this, maybe a couple hundred PSI shift. And this could occur if you didn't happen to have the valves set to active. If the valves are set to passive, the system has to maintain about a 200 PSI pressure drop to keep the check valve closed during the times we don't want flow to come from a pump. But if you have it set that way and you're running the active valves, you'd still get that 200 PSI offset. So the pumps can't switch over as precisely. So you do need to make sure you do have active valves set. If the system stops with the delivery pump overpressure, we may have the flow rate set too high. Remember that when you're running in continuous flow with normal liquid fluids, we say that the maximum flow rate should be about 65% of the individual pump's maximum. And this, of course, is to allow the time for the system to refill and repressurize on switchovers. If you're running liquefied gases, this kind of lowers to about 45%. So do make sure that you're not trying to run the system at too high a flow rate if your system just stops. If the delivery pumps never come out of equilibrate, the pressure drop across your experiment may be not stable enough. You can try using the fast mode for equilibrium if that occurs, or if you're still having problems, it's even possible to use the low pressure setting to turn off the pressure matching completely. But one does have to realize when you do that, you're not going to get quite as good a switchover pressure, a little more change in pressure during switchovers. Again, you can find information on operating the pumps in receive mode in Technical Bulletin number 2, which you also can find on our website. So in conclusion, the continuous flow modes allow for continuous fluid handling with the syringe pumps, both in case of delivering and receiving fluid. You can always keep up to date with what's going on with the syringe pumps by going to our website, www.isco.com/sp, if you'd like to go right to the syringe pump section. And we can do many custom things to our pumps if necessary. If you don't see something that quite meets what you need, be sure to give us a call or contact us to let us know, because we often can make small modifications to the system to be able to meet your requirements. And again, always check our library of applications notes and technical bulletins. We're constantly updating those on our website. And today, specifically, we talked about TB28, how to identify syringe pump controller versions, and then TB1, which is the multi-pump setup, and operation for continuous flow, and TBO2, which were the operation in receive mode. If you have further questions, please contact myself. I'm at mhansen@teledyne.com by email, or my phone number is direct phone number is listed here at 402-465-2086. You can also contact the product manager for syringe pumps, Dale Clay, and he's available at dclay@teledyne.com or at 402-465-2078. Okay, well, thank you all. We'll see you next time at our next webinar.